And that's when things started to officially go to hell. Stories like this began popping up like dandelions, and over the next 24 hours, everyone was glued to their televisions and computers. It happened so fast, one hospital turned to 6, which turned to 60, which turned to nothing. Conspiracy nuts will tell you that it was the government turning off some magical switch to the internet, or that the news channels were shut down, but the truth was, nobody was reporting. Uploading a video or setting up a feed, it takes time. And when the levee that was holding the outbreak back finally burst, there was no more time. The next few weeks were a chaotic, blind panic, a frantic attempt at survival. Television was forgot. Hell, technology itself was forgotten. We became the animals that we always told ourselves we were above. And in the end, all that really mattered was survival. I've always been amazed by how quickly mankind can adapt to survive, and how quickly we forget that we're actually adapting. If you can stop what you're doing and take a moment to remember how things used to be and how different things are today. I mean, we were so reliant on technology and medicine. We had pills and tests for everything. It almost seems silly, but when is the last time that you worried about your cholesterol? Or too much MSG on your chicken? God, I can't even remember the last time I had chicken. The reason I bring this up is that while traveling through Illinois, I was chased by a swarm of zombies, and I jacked up my ankle pretty bad making my escape. It was hell to walk on, let alone run. And if it wasn't for blind luck and the kindness of a guy named Charlie, I probably wouldn't be here today. Charlie had been riding cautiously, watching me from a window. But then when he saw that I was struggling, he came. He just ran to me without any hesitation to help. I honestly thought that he was insane when we first met. He had this look about him, unshaven, unkempt, wide-searching eyes, but he also, well, he had painkillers and experience, and these days, the smallest act of kindness from a stranger is pretty rare. And it was obvious that he had seen a lot, and like all of us, it had changed him, but you could also see, feel, really, that he had been an incredibly gifted man at some point. You sure you don't mind if I do this, Charlie? I mean, you've already done so much for me. I feel almost greedy asking for this from you, but it's honestly, it's kind of what I do.
No, son, you just go ahead and ask your question.
Thank you. Okay, could you please state your name and age for the record?
Dr. Charles Goethe, age 51.
What are you doing out here by yourself? I mean, wouldn't you feel safer in the settlement that I saw just outside of Decatur?
You mean Hope? That's what they call that place now. I make my way there from time to time and check in on folks, help out where I can.
Help out? You were a physician, right? A doctor of some sorts. I mean, from the way that you looked at my foot,
Yeah, well, you could say that. I was the chief resident of emergency medicine at the University Medical Center in Tulsa.
That sounds like a big job. What did you do there?
Well, have you ever been to the emergency room waiting for help when someone else rushed in ahead of you?
Sure.
Well, it was my job to receive them. No cuts and bruises or belly aches, but the emergencies where time was of the essence and someone's life hung in the immediate balance. I was there to assist with every elevated trauma that you could think of: gunshots, car accidents, severed limbs. Once, I even had to remove a man's genitals. Well, let's just say that's a rather long story.
Wait a minute. If you were in the ER, did you see... I mean, did you try to help the people who were infected with this?
I did. Quite a few, actually.
So you actually saw how the virus in its early stages, you saw it how it works. That's amazing. Could you run through what you saw in a typical case?
Well, there was some variation, but typically we'd see a patient come in with multiple puncture wounds to the extremities, their arms or legs mostly, bite marks, mangled fingers.
Puncture wounds and bites.
See, we didn't realize it at the time, but yes, these were the beginnings of the larger attacks. They were exhibiting symptoms of what we were unofficially calling stage 1.
What were the symptoms?
Just complaints of extreme thirst, high fever, Headache, chills. If it weren't for the wounds, I would have thought it was an outbreak of avian influenza.
The bird flu? Well, how did you try to treat it?
Well, we started with a standard battery of antibiotics, Suprax and Spectracef, a handful of others. We were anticipating bacterial infections from the wounds, but we eventually deduced that the causation itself was a viral.
Did you ever see someone turn?
Yes, and I can honestly say that I'll never forget the first time that I witnessed it. The patient was Sarah Evans, and she was 34, and she had entered stage 2. At this point, the patient's body would begin to shut down. There was a decrease in breathing, heart rate, and signs of renal failure. Eventually, their hearts would stop altogether, and they could not be resuscitated. It's not like you'd see on televisions. Hospitals actually have a fair chance of bringing people of generally good health back from the brink with defibrillators and proper drug injections. The fact we were now failing 100% of the time would scare the hell out of us. Miss Evans had been in stage 2 for approximately 3 hours before she flatlined. We did what we could, but after 15 minutes of surgery procedure, I had no choice but to call it. There were a lot of sick people who were still alive that needed our help. We were so overwhelmed. But there wasn't time to properly move her body, so we covered her with the sheet and moved on to the next emergency. A few hours later, I was running by, and out of the corner of my eye, I thought I saw the sheet move. I was exhausted, so at first I thought it was my mind playing tricks on me, but as I was standing there, it happened again. There was definite movement.
She had reanimated.
I was both elated and horrified. I thought we had made a horrible mistake, that in our haste had missed a weak pulse, or that the EKG had malfunctioned. I pulled the sheet that she was struggling with from her face and asked her if she knew her name or where she was.
And were you able to communicate with her?
She gurgled a low moan as if she were in pain. A low, almost instinctual function of the adrenal medulla. Before I had a chance to check her retinal responses, she jerked into a sitting position and grabbed me quite forcibly by the throat. Her mouth was agape and she was gnashing her teeth. Given how recent her cardiac arrest had been, I was more than a bit taken aback by the level of necrosis that she was exhibiting.
A person had come back to life and was trying to eat you, and that's what surprised you?
Well, yes. A nearby orderly noticed our struggles, and together we managed to subdue Miss Evans and strapped her down. We put her in isolation, but I never had another chance to follow up with her. If I had had more time to examine her and treat her, maybe I could have helped.
So it's safe to say that stage 3 is reanimation?
Very astute. As medically unlikely as it sounds, this virus has the undeniable ability to somehow reanimate a very small portion of a clinically dead patient's brain. Because of the limited scope of brain functionality, there is no memory, reasoning, or sense of self-preservation beyond basic mobility. They lack even the most rudimentary problem-solving skills or complex motor functions.
But they still need to eat.
Well, no. While they do possess an almost primal need to eat, I suspect that it is either an unintentional reaction from the resurrection process, or more likely, a way for the virus to propagate itself and spread. They may eat, but they derive no sustenance from what they consume. Because of this, we have no way to accurately estimate the life cycle of the new organism, or zombie, if you will.
So you're saying that they could be here a while?
Oh, as they appear to repel not only natural scavengers, but bacteria and insect populations that normally break down a corpse. I would place a sizable wager on this being a long-term conundrum.
I was afraid you were going to say that.
Now, let's take another look at that angle.
After he was certain that I'd be all right, Charlie gave me a small bottle of pills for my pain, and we went our separate ways. I had more interviews to find, and he said that he had taken an oath to help, and that's what he was going to do. I haven't seen him since, but his story never fails to remind of just how tragic all of this really was. So if you hear about a scraggly doctor wandering the countryside and handing out pills like a bearded Pez dispenser, tell him Double D says hello. And thank you. And if you happen to hear that he didn't make it or stumble upon something worse, keep that shit to yourself. I couldn't take it. If you've ever been out there alone. You probably learned that traveling has changed quite a bit since the outbreak. Most of the roads are impassable, and you spend more time ducking the undead or scouting out the living than you do actually chalking up the miles. Well, there's a bunch of people out there putting more miles in one day than most of us could in a week. I call them the Caravan. Because while they didn't have an official name for their group, that's essentially what they were. A group of mobile survivors following this monster big rig slowly down the highway. Equipped with a cattle catcher from an old train and a solid, well, it had solid, albeit mostly bald, tires. The lead truck cleared the roads of cars and zombies with equal ease, while the follow-up vehicles put down anything that was too close for good. Now, I was lucky enough to not only stumble across them and trade a few things, but to ride with them for a few days and get to know them a little bit. Now, the lead driver, the owner of the Monster Express, as he called it, was a surprisingly happy, easygoing guy named Hayshaker, who agreed to an interview as he drove because, as I learned, the Caravan never stops for long.
You okay over there?
Well, yeah, thanks. I just, it's bigger than here than I would have thought.
Oh, this is my baby. Custom sleeper, 191 inches. Hell, I even got a microwave back there.
She's beautiful.
Oh, no, not like she used to be, but hey, I don't have to pay on her anymore, right?
Well, thank you for doing this. I know that you're busy.
Oh, driving slow like this, sleeping most of the time, only wake up for the turns.
Are you ready to get started?
Sure. What do we do?
Okay, just answer any questions that you want to answer.
That it?
That's it.
All right, shoot.
Please state your name and age for the record.
I'm 44, yes. The name's Donald Michael Fredericks Jr., but if you got your ears on him, Hayshaker.
Hayshaker?
Well, technically, I'm Hayshaker Jr. My daddy was Hayshaker. But since he's passing all, I leave the junior part out. He got the name because back in the day he used to drive a big old hay wagon and he made it shake every night he could. He'd come on back.
So, Hayshaker, where were you when all of this started?
You mean this zombie stuff?
Yeah.
Hey, funny story. Actually, I nearly slipped through it.
You nearly slept through it?
Yep. See, when all of this really started, I was back there.
In your bed?
Yep. And the sleeper had me one of those stomach bugs. Not like the sickness folks get now right before they turn. But it was pretty bad. Don't know if it was a cold or just bad meal, but I had a case of the shit, something fierce. Can I say the shit?
Yeah, although I might have to bleep it out when I play it for my church group.
Oh, okay, I'll try not to say it. Anyways, I was laid up for like 2 days, stomach cramps and the shit, making a whole bunch. Finally, I just like fell asleep in the bunk and prayed for death. Oh, I guess I just joked about that.
You're fine, go on.
Well, I had the squawk box off because folks get ratchet on, and the last thing you want to hear when you're holding your pooper shut and fighting off cramps is a bunch of idiots hollering at you, so I had no real idea what was going on outside my own truck. And a while later, I'm feeling better, sipping water from the fridge and thinking about getting up when someone starts pounding on my door, making a real racket of it too, and I figured it was just one of them lot lizards, trying to get in, so I got up to chase her off. I don't play with lot lizards. I mean, I ain't no good buddy or nothing. I just don't fiddle with them. Your church folk should know that.
Lot lizards?
No. Anyway, I crawl up into the cab, look down, and it ain't Lizzie, it's this fat fella just stumbling around, and I figured he was drunk and trying to get into the wrong cab, so I jumped down, and that's when I saw it.
He was a zombie.
He didn't have no face! I mean, whoop gone, no face! Well, I let out a yell that would curl your hair and jump back, which was stupid, because I brought all of them running. Before I knew it, I was pretty near surrounded.
What did you do?
Well, I reached out and I kicked old No-Face right in the knee. I didn't know about no living dead or zombies back then. It was just a reaction. And luckily, he was a big fella with just one leg, and he went all wobbly and tipped right over. And I jumped back up into the cab, and I just sat there a while, looking out at the truck stop. It was like a sea of people. Except they weren't people no more, They were zombies.
So you were trapped?
Oh, like hell I was. I got me a big old Cummins diesel, and while she didn't have no cattle catcher back then, she was still strong enough to get me back on the road.
So you just...
I drove. That's all I know, so that's all I did. I put the hammer down and away I went. It was slow at first, but then ain't people no more. Hell, they didn't even try to get out of the way. I just crunched my way out the lot and kept driving. Wasn't fast though. I mean, I think that was the worst part. I wasn't pulling what I'm pulling now. Back then, I had me a wiggle wagon, and every bump felt like I was going to tip.
Wiggle wagon?
Yep. No, I detached it down the roadways. Once I saw how bad everything really was and heard the chatter on the radio, I figured that I didn't need to deliver the load no more. Kinda wish I stuck it out, though. I was hauling a bunch of stock for one of them home improvement stores. Ooh, would have come in handy in hindsight.
So, what about them? The rest of your caravan?
Oh, you mean my big old convoy? Well, I'm not sure, to be honest. I mean, every time I'd stop to fuel up or look for something to eat, there'd be some fella in a van or a bunch of folks in a bus, and they'd ask if they could ride along. I couldn't say no. I mean, safety in numbers, right? Besides, the company felt good. Radio had been dead for a while. Yeah, I said, yeah. And they never tell you this, but it gets pretty lonely on the road. So before I knew it, my one or two followers turned into a convoy with me the lead.
So you're the leader then?
Well, not like no boss or nothing. Folks look to me because I know the roads, you know, and I can fix pretty near anything with wheels. I don't make no big decisions. I just drive, and sometimes folks follow.
What do you miss?
From the old days?
Yeah.
Oh, not a lot really. It's mostly the same for me. I drive, talk to folks, hell. Big Reg back there keeps the food diner quality. For me, nothing's really changed all that much.
You have to miss something.
Well, yeah, I guess.
What is it?
Oh, it's kind of stupid.
Try me.
You won't laugh?
I won't laugh.
Okay. Well, burritos. Hey! Hey, you said you weren't gonna laugh.
Burritos?
Not the real ones. Reg can make, still kind of make those. I mean the frozen kind. The kind you get in a truck stop at 2 in the morning when there was no one around but other drivers. The kind you had to microwave forever, and they'd still be frozen. So you'd stand around jawing with the other guys and swapping stories and trading handles. That's what I miss.
Yeah, I miss that too.
Yeah. Hey, we done here? It looks like we got something big up ahead. We might have to stop.
Yeah, we're good. Thank you for this, hay shaker.
Yep.
Riding with the caravan for a few days, I got to witness how they operated. There was never any fighting or bickering, and everyone had their role, the thing that made them valuable to the group. I'd be lying if I said that I wasn't tempted to stay with them. It was, it was good for my heart to see social functionality again, people getting along, doing a job, and helping each other out. One of the more surprising interviews that came, it was a woman in her mid-20s that everyone called Mama. Now, I thought that it was odd that she'd have such a nickname, especially since there were women that were, older and more matronly than her around, so I asked her about it. And I've regretted it ever since. Thank you for agreeing to do this. This is tape 17 interview with Krista Phillips, age 26.
Mama. Everyone here calls me Mama.
Why is that?
I watch after the kids.
Just you?
No, there are others, but I'm the one that the kids call Mama. Sophie, a little blonde girl that used to ride with us, started it, and all the other kids just picked it up.
It's kind of sweet. Do you like it?
Keep a secret?
Well, not really. These recordings are
I fucking hate it.
Why?
Because most of these kids have lost their parents. They've lost their real mothers and fathers, and because I'm there taking care of them, they imprint on me, like baby ducks. And I'm not their mama, and it kills me every single time that they say it. It's funny, you'd think that you'd get used to it, and it would hurt less. But I swear to God, it hurts more and more every time.
Then why not have them call you something else?
Do you know what I was before all of this started?
No, that's kind of the purpose of these tapes.
I was a housewife, living the suburban dream. I had a nice house, a successful husband with a good job, and we had just gotten married and were ready to settle down. It was the kind of perfect life that you only read about in magazines or see on sitcoms, and I did it all. Mary Kay, Avon, even those candle wax parties with those little scented tabs that melt but don't actually burn. That was my life, and I loved it.
It sounds like it was lovely.
It really was. We lived in this pretty little house at the end of a cul-de-sac on Pine Haven Road. Pine Haven. It seems silly now, but back then it felt like I was saying Beverly Hills. When the plague or whatever they're calling it really hit, my husband Teddy and I shouldn't have stood a chance. I'm not even sure how we got out of there alive. I remember my neighbor Sarah bouncing up and over the hood of our BMW. Sarah, who bought more Avon than any one woman could use. The same Sarah who still had my good cake pans, dead and trying to make me the same way.
It wasn't your friend anymore. You know that, right?
Still didn't make it right. Teddy and I spent the next few days just trying to survive. During the day, we'd park and hide somewhere. Abandoned hotels, the back of a delivery truck. Any place we could be quiet and feel safe. At night, we'd drive. Slowly, no headlights, we'd just drive. Every once in a while, we'd hit something or someone, and we'd just keep going. We weren't sure where we were going. We just knew that someplace had to be safe. Someplace had to be better than this. One morning, right at dawn, we decided to break into this corner drugstore. It had grates on the windows, a barred door, and as far as we could tell, it was empty on the inside.
Was it empty?
Yeah, but it was harder to get into than we thought it would be. Without tools, a locked door stops the living just as well as it stops the dead. But Teddy wouldn't be dissuaded. He was positive that there would be food and supplies in there, so we kept trying to get in. He was using the tire wrench from the car, this cheap little thing that bent way too easily, and we were almost in when a zombie comes staggering around the corner and grabs me right by the back of the head. I thought I was dead. Teddy let out this deep-throated scream and tackled it. He pulled it right off me. Teddy wasn't a huge guy, and to be honest, he was a bit softer than most. He was a computer programmer. They're not known for their physical strength. But right then, he was Hercules. They rolled around for a second until Teddy got on top of it, and using the tire iron, he caved in its head just over and over again until it stopped moving. I'd never seen him like that.
Fear is a powerful motivator.
So is getting bit. I didn't know it at first, but when Teddy was wrestling with that thing, it bit him. Not bad, not even really a bite. It just pinched him, barely even breaking the skin, but it was enough. We got inside and barred the door behind us, and then we cried. I'm not sure why. It might have been fear, elation at getting away, or just adrenaline. We just sat there, leaning up against the door, holding each other and crying.
Was he infected?
Yeah. I mean, we cleaned the wound with rubbing alcohol and bandaged it good, but about an hour later, the fever set in.
I'm sorry.
Have you ever seen it? Have you ever seen someone go from healthy to infected? Have you ever watched as they get sick and die?
Yeah.
Sucks, doesn't it?
Yeah.
When Teddy died, I didn't know what I'd do. I knew that I wouldn't have the strength to keep him from becoming one of those things. I knew that I didn't have it in me to do what the news said we had to do.
So what did you do?
I dragged him outside and closed the door behind me.
Did he change?
I could hear him on the other side of the door, moaning, getting up, shuffling around.
What did you do?
I got drunk, that's what I did. Blind, stinking drunk. The drugstore had a cooler, and although everything was piss warm, I drank until I felt like I was going to throw up. Then I walked to the pharmacy, got a handful of pills from behind the counter, and I ended it.
You tried to kill yourself?
No, not me. I took a handful of those Plan B pills. I guess it could have killed me too, but at that moment I didn't care.
You were pregnant?
3 months. Like I said, I was in suburban heaven. But now that hell was walking the earth, I wasn't going to bring a child into this world. Not alone. Not when it could end up.
I am so...
That's when they found me. The caravan. Bleeding to death from a miscarriage, stupid, drunk, and barely conscious in a corner drugstore. They cleaned me up, they took care of me, and they gave me a reason to keep going. So, now I'm mama to them all, no matter how badly it hurts. Because they deserve a mama. and I deserve to remember what I did.
You did what you thought was...
Look, I'm sorry. I think we're done. I have to get back to the kids.
Of course, look, I just... Thank you. Honestly, thank you for this, Krista.
Mama, always Mama.
Thank you, Mama.